Okay, what is going on, everyone? Sorry I'm a few minutes late. For those of you that follow me on Twitter, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it tonight, but I'm here. Had a sick child situation, so we'll see. We'll see how long we last tonight. Hopefully, we'll make it the full time, but if not, I hope you all understand that why I may need to duck out a little bit early. But let's plan on an hour. Let me just tweet this out really quickly. Make sure that we get full awareness like we normally do. And then we'll get started in just a minute. Go ahead and start populating questions as we get going. For those of you that it's your first time, welcome. Very informal, just trying to help you guys out with some Q&A, have some fun on a Saturday night. So we are live. Okay, let's get into it, shall we? How's everybody doing tonight? All right. What's going on, Derek? How are we doing? First question. Currently have Connor in the lineup. Thoughts on switching to Bell or Freeman to upgrade tight end or wide receiver? I don't personally love it. I think, trusting any running back in that situation is difficult. If I just look at Ravens snap counts last week, you have Devontae Freeman at 30%, Le'Veon Bell at 32%, and Latavius Murray at 38%. Is Tyson Williams active? Because if he is, who knows? He could have a role. And it looks like he was inactive last week. I don't know if he's going to be active this week. It doesn't really matter. I like Connor a lot. I think he's in a good position to score a touchdown. It depends who you would upgrade. So, you can do it, I guess. I don't sign off on it. The lowest I would go down from Connor. Let me just take a look here really quickly. Connor's at 65, so you could go down to Devontae Booker at 58. I think that's fine. So I would rather play Booker than Freeman at 57. I would rather play. It's probably it. Booker's really the only guy. Miles Sanders at 59, I would rather go than Devontae Freeman too. So I don't know if that helps you, but those are the two guys that I'm targeting, sub 6K. I like Miles Sanders quite a bit this week. I think that he's in line for an improved game. The offensive coordinator came out and talked pretty highly about him. He actually looked good last week. He had 58 yards rushing on just 9 carries against Tampa Bay, which Tampa Bay has one of the best run defenses in football. So if not the best run defense in football. So I think Miles Sanders could be in a pretty good situation this week. I actually have him in my cash game lineups as we stand right now. So him or Booker, I'm fine with. DFS the flex position. Which guy is a better play, Connor or Rondale Moore? James Conner. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of Cardinals questions. I think that tonight they scare me, if I'm being honest, because I don't know how much they're going to need to throw against Houston. If they could be up very early and run the ball 35, 40 times this week. So I don't love Rondale Moore, but hey, Iron Man Dan, how we doing? First of all, thank you. She's asleep right now, so hopefully it stays that way throughout the night. Thoughts on DeAndre Hopkins? He's definitely not a cash game play. So if I just look at his, one thing I like to do is I like to look at whoever's projections that you trust across the industry. And then I compare those to the prop numbers, which are free at any sports book that would have them. And one thing to notice is that if you look at DeAndre Hopkins, his prop number is, I'm pulling it up right now. Hopkins, 71.5 yards. So 71.5 yards on FanDuel, compare that to a player like Cooper Kupp, who's around 90. I would find the extra $800. I think that I have Hopkins projected less than DJ Moore or less than Jamar Chase. Like I said, I'm just worried a lot about this Cardinals offense. They're going to score. Certainly they're going to score probably a couple times, but Hopkins only had 4 targets last week in a blowout game against Cleveland. He did score 2 touchdowns, which saved his day, but he doesn't have a single game in which he has 10 targets or more, and he's only averaging 6 targets per game, which for an $8,000 wide receiver, you want more than 6 targets. As a GPP play, I think it's different because let me just look at where I have him from a ownership projection standpoint. Let me pull that up really quickly. Ownership projections. Okay, Hopkins. Technology today, I am completely out of it. Yeah, I have him at 5% rostered. So I think as a GPP play, he's more than fine. But as a cash game play, I think there's better options. Hey, John, how are we doing? That's the way I'm going. I have Mahomes and Williams in my cash game lineup. So they're going to score 32 points projected by sports books out there. I think that they get over that number. I think this is a big week for the Chiefs. So the beauty of that theory in cash is that you should get every touchdown, so a piece of every single touchdown that they have. So if they score 4 touchdowns, they're either passing or running. So I think it increases your floor that way. You're all in on the Cincy Baltimore game. Most of your lineups have players from this game. Who do I like most? It's a good question. I don't have a ton from that game, so I think that you're going to be, I don't want to say unique. I wouldn't necessarily, I'd be careful on it in cash games, but as a GPP to stack that game, I think it's fine. At tight end, Mark Andrews is going somewhat overlooked compared to going up to Kelsey or down to Dallas Goedert or Ricky Seals-Jones. I think is going to be popular. So I think Andrews sort of falls in the middle a little bit. And then Jamar Chase is a similar situation. I don't love Joe Mixon. He's okay. But Baltimore's run defense has been pretty good so far this year. So I think it's Chase and Andrews for me as upside plays. Okay, let's see. A lot of questions tonight, which is awesome. I will answer like always. If we have to go extra time, I will go longer. She's gonna be fine, Billy. She's just a little bit of the stomach flu is all, so she'll be good. But I appreciate that. Pick 2, Ayuk, Aguilar, Callaway, Hardman. Yeah, if you guys could just put PPR or non-PPR or whatever scoring that you guys have for this, I think it would be helpful. Hardman is definitely in my lineup here. I want as many Chiefs as I can get. Certainly not playing him in, well, I guess you could play him on Draftkings for those that are. But if I look at Ayuk versus Aguilar, slim pickings, but I know it's a really deep league. So I would go Marquez Callaway. Seattle's defense is horrible, one of the worst in the league. And Jameis sort of needs to step it up. He's been struggling lately. He has shown that he's been better the last 2 weeks. I think he's averaging 260, something like that, compared to where he was at early in the year. So I think Callaway is probably in the best position there, along with Hardman. Who's the best wide receiver pay-up option? I mean, it's like you're really splitting hairs there. But the two guys are Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp. I prefer Devontae Adams very slightly. And the reason here goes back to the very similar DeAndre Hopkins game that I talked about. Green Bay is going to have to throw a lot more. They should. Now, Green Bay is always weird, and their offense seems stuck in the mud at times, which is never great. But Washington's secondary is abysmal. I think they're allowing either the most passing yards or second most on the year, and I want a piece of that action. What scares me about Cooper Kupp, I think he's a GPP play because I think he can score 2 touchdowns. But if this game gets out of hand quickly, is Matthew Stafford going to keep throwing the ball? You could make the argument, yes, because of the revenge factor, but you're sort of leaning on that more than actual historical context. I don't think that the Rams are going to have to come out and throw 40, 50 times if they're up big in the first or second quarter. So it's ever so splitting hairs. But I would go Devontae Adams barely over Cooper Kupp. Could Connor and Edmonds both 3x salary on FanDuel? So that's hard. That's really hard because they're going to need, let's see, I'm just pulling up prices. I know Connor's 65. I think Edmonds is 62, something like that. So call it 12.7. So you're going to need 38.1. Yeah. Just making sure my math's right. 38.1. So you're going to need 3 touchdowns. Is it possible? Sure. Is it likely? I don't know. I think it's tough. But yeah, if I had to put a percentage on it, probably 5%. But you're going to be one of the very few that's going to have it in a tournament. So if you believe strongly in it, go for it. Gaston, Herbert, Collins, if healthy. Penny is a free agent. I probably Collins. I would have Collins and Penny and just play with whatever one is going there. Herbert, Damian Williams is playing, or he's going to be active, I believe. So he's out. Gaskin, I just don't trust the week-to-week variance there, as well as the lack of consistent touches. So I would go Collins pretty easily if he's healthy. Ayuk, Hardman, Corey Davis, A-Rob. Corey Davis and Robinson or Hardman. I have Hardman and Robinson really close. I would choose Hardman just because of the upside. I don't see a lot in Allen Robinson, but the talent's there. I think Justin Fields is going to be running for his life. We saw what happened when they faced a really good defensive line earlier this season in Cleveland. And the Bears have sort of had a couple weeks in a row where they've sort of had easier matchups. I know the Raiders are good too, and he threw for 111 yards. The Lions and Packers against rushing the passer are not nearly as good, but even then, 174 against the Packers and 209 against the Lions. So what's Robinson's real upside there? I don't know. think it's tough. Rate top to bottom, Yahoo DFS. Damian Harris. Let me see. I just want to make sure I'm giving you the right numbers. Jacobs. Booker. Jacobs, Booker. Harris. I would rank them Josh Jacobs, Devontae Booker, Damian Harris, Devontae Freeman. I wish I could help you. I don't know. I would follow somebody who knows a little bit more than me. Ask Gene Bramall on Twitter. He might get back to you on that one. I admittedly don't look that close to it and don't want to give you the wrong information. Tyler Johnson, sneaky DFS play. No. I mean, nah, I don't see it. I mean, yeah, I don't like it enough to justify it. I don't know what his price is, but I can look it up really quickly. Maybe as a DraftKings play. So what is his price on DraftKings? Yeah, he's minimum price on DraftKings. So if you're going to do it at $3K, I think he's more than fine on DraftKings. I think he's actually a really good play on DraftKings. Him and Rashad Bateman are probably the top low-end guys. I might prefer I probably prefer Bateman a little bit over him, but Johnson's definitely interesting on DraftKings. On FanDuel or Yahoo, probably not, just because, I mean, if Johnson has like 3 for 42 at $3K on DraftKings, you're fine with the full PPR, but on FanDuel, that's not good enough because of the half point PPR. DK Cash, Hendy, Chuba, Jacobs. No, let me talk on that one just a little bit. So, is fading Derrick Henry crazy? No. You can go either way on this one. I don't have a strong opinion on fading him versus not. I'm playing him on DraftKings. I'm not playing him on FanDuel. $11K on FanDuel is just a crazy price. The benefit of DraftKings, you get the 100-yard bonus that assuredly he will hit. I have him at almost a lock for 20 points, assuming he scores a touchdown, because that's 100 yards and a touchdown and 1 catch, right? So that's a floor of 2x, which a lot of running backs really can't say. Going back to your question, Henderson, yes, I think he's my number 2 guy. I like Chuba quite a bit. The question is Josh Jacobs. And at 6,200 on DraftKings, it's a tough price. I would personally look at Darrell Williams at 5,800 in a better offense. You don't have the frustrations that you do with Josh Jacobs. He hasn't been that good this year. 53 yards is his highest rushing total of the year. He's averaging 3.2 yards per carry. So I would probably look at Darrell Williams over him, but I like your receivers quite a bit. Stafford or Hurts? Stafford. Yeah. Hurts is too expensive on FanDuel. I think he's like 83, 84. So the way I'm looking on FanDuel is I don't like any quarterback under 8K for cash games. So the way I have it at the moment, I have it Mahomes is my top guy. Stafford is my number 2 guy. Kyler is my number 3. Lamar Jackson as a GPP play, I think is fine. He does have some games where he's a clunker against Cincinnati, so that scares me a little bit. But if you don't want to pay up for Mahomes, I think Stafford is more than fine. And it goes back to the very similar thing that I talked about with Mahomes. If you go with Stafford and Henderson, you're getting both touchdowns. So in a cash game setting, I think it's fine. GPP, I would probably go Hurts if you want Henderson because of the rushing upside. He could run for 2 touchdowns, which, completely derails the slate. So I think realistically, it just depends what contest you're going to be in. So with that, if you haven't hit the like button, if you haven't subscribed to Football Guys YouTube, I see some people from Facebook here, which is awesome. We are expanding this show to a couple different sources. I think we're on Twitch and Twitter as well. So thank you everyone for joining here. Give us the like button. It does help the show and help the algorithm. So it is much appreciated as we sit here on a Saturday night and just try and figure this slate out together. Is Justin Fields too thin of a play? Yeah, I can't sign off on Justin Fields. I watch him run for 2 touchdowns as I say that, but more times than not, you're going to not do well if you take Justin Fields until he develops more. He doesn't have the problem with Justin Fields. He doesn't have that acceleration that some of these like elite running backs have, or running quarterbacks have, I should say. He seems like his first step seems a bit slow. I don't know if it's like a anticipation thing or he's still looking to pass or what it is, but he's not taking off and just blowing by defenders, which is a concern. So I wouldn't do it, to be honest. Keep rolling the dice or keep waiting on Allen Robinson to roll the dice on Quez. I would take Robinson. Quez is a little too thin for me. I mean, he's probably the 3rd guy in Philly, and Philly doesn't have that much of a passing threat either. Brady's your quarterback. Which 3v3 would you choose for a GPP? Evans, Ridley, Goddard, or Godwin, Brown, Andrews. I would take the second one. I would go the second one with Godwin, Brown, and Andrews. A lot of love for Calvin Ridley this week. I don't personally see it. I think that Kyle Pitts is interesting now that he's had sort of a breakout game, breakout week. Calvin Ridley, Xavier Howard still out. Is that what's driving the love? I'm checking. Sorry, I'm sure this is not the best. He's questionable for this game. So Byron Jones is questionable too. So I think Kyle Pitts is probably the guy in a GPP for Atlanta. I don't necessarily love Calvin Ridley, to be honest. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, or Ryan Ridley. God, right after I say that, I'm probably going back to Ridley. Let me just make sure. Devontae Hurts, 38 compared to Ryan and Ridley, 36. I actually have the Hurts Smith 2 points higher, but I think safety-wise, I would probably go Ryan and Ridley. I think that the range of outcomes for Hurts and Smith is much, much wider. But Ridley's probably going to get 6 for 70 yards. He might score a touchdown. I don't see when going back to the previous question, I don't see him having 150 yards and 2 touchdowns to like be a GPP winner. But as a cash game play, I'm totally fine with it this week. Oh, thanks, Max. And yeah, it's fun. Take advantage of all of the sports books that are out there. Whenever a state opens up, they just throw crazy money at different things. So for those of you that have joined a sports book that live in a state that has joined it, I hope that you take advantage of all of them, because they just throw crazy money in promos for first-time users. So that's the easiest money that you can make, to be honest. You get some free bets, you get some risk-free stuff. Take advantage of all of it. Elijah Mitchell or T. Higgins, PPR flex. Elijah. And T. Higgins. What I'll say is I have them projected within a half a point of each other, which means that I'm going to tell you to go the running back just because it's less volatile. If you need upside, I would probably go T. Higgins, but I would probably strongly think about if you just need 10 to 11 points, I would probably go with Elijah Mitchell. Kurt, I'm not answering your questions about Dan. I'm sorry. I know you don't like him, but I am very happy with him. Wide receivers not named Kupp, Adams, Hill, FanDuel Cash. Ridley, Godwin, Brown. Which Brown? AJ Brown? Yeah. So here's how I'm approaching FanDuel Cash. So I like a lot of the guys you said. So Kupp, Adams, Hill. I'm not playing Hill because of the quad injury. He only played, I think, 50 or 60% of the snaps last week. So go and look at that. Didn't really practice this week, so I don't think he's a full go once again. But looking at FanDuel Cash this week, the guys that I'm targeting are AJ Brown for sure. Chris Godwin is probably one of my top guys there at 6,700. I think he's in a really good spot. Calvin Ridley, if you can afford it at 73, I think is fine. Jalen Waddle down at 59 is the sub 6K guy that I'm targeting. And then the other guy that I'm sort of looking at a little bit is where is he? Can't find it. I'll come back to it. I think Mike Evans is fine too at 7,100. So Godwin or Evans, I would pick one, whichever one you think is going to score a touchdown. I like Godwin just a little bit because he's cheaper. Stafford and Henderson quite a bit in DraftKings for the same reason. Yeah, totally fine. Devontae Smith. Better to pay down to Roger Stafford, pay up at wide receivers. Also thoughts on Cuba. I like Cuba. Like I said earlier, John, it's for me on FanDuel this week, it's either Mahomes or it's Stafford in cash. So I'm totally fine with Stafford. I think he's going to throw 290 at least and probably 3 touchdowns. I don't know that he's going to have this 400-yard game like some people are speculating. I think he's probably 280, 290, 2.5, 3 touchdowns, which more than okay. Do I like Miles Sanders on DraftKings? Let me check his price. I've been on FanDuel all morning writing my article, my cash game detailed article. So Sanders, what price is he at? 5,100. Yeah, he rates out really well. for the same reasons that I talked about earlier. The team has come out and said that they want to get him more involved. If I look at that range, you're talking there's not a lot to like in that range. It starts to get really thin really quickly. So Michael Carter against New England, I prefer Sanders. You have Devontae Freeman down at 4,400, but I talked about that and how much I don't trust this Baltimore running game. So, and then the other guys are just split carry guys. So Sanders is probably my favorite sub 5,500 player. I would probably take him over Devontae Booker. And then I would probably take him over James Conner at 56. So yeah, I like him a lot. Better start Burrow or Tannehill. Give me Burrow. I don't. No. I mean, you could. But I think I talked, 35, 40 minutes in that to get to Henry, I would probably have to go with Jalen Hurts down at 6,900. The way to do it, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, is you could go Miles Sanders at wide receiver. You could go with either Rashad Bateman or who was the other name that we threw out there at that price? Tyler Johnson at 3,000, I think is an okay cash game play. And then you could go with Ricky Seals-Jones. So I'm not playing Mahomes on FanDuel or DraftKings cash. I'm playing him on FanDuel. Could that come back and bite me? Absolutely. But Jalen Hurts is the guy that I'm looking at. You could also look at Matthew Stafford at 7,100. I think he's more than fine. Great chance to get that 300-yard bonus. So one of those two guys fitting with Henry is the way that I'm looking. Hurts or Jackson in GPP. Give me Jackson. I think that that game could be a sneaky shootout. It's over-under is like 48, but they're not going to – Baltimore scored 34 points last week. And it was the flukiest of fluky games because all three running backs scored a touchdown. Freeman, Bell, and Latavius Murray all scored a touchdown, which just crushed Lamar Jackson. So if they score 34 points again, if they score 34 points in like 90% of the time, Jackson's going to have a major, major role in that. So I think his upside is higher than Jalen Hurts this week. Any love for Devontae Freeman on DraftKings 3 Max? No. The problem is, at best, he's going to be on the field 50, 60% of the time, and he's going to have to deal with Lamar Jackson running the ball, and he doesn't catch a ton of passes. So I would look at Miles Sanders at $700 more if you can afford it. Sterling Shepard, Jalen Waddle, or Devontae Parker, wide receiver 3. Should have been a lot easier if the Giants didn't have. If I look at the Giants, Darius Slayton looks like he's going to go, which hurts Sterling Shepard quite a bit. So let me just look at the Dolphins really quickly. I would go. It's close, but I would pay the extra for Jalen Waddle, especially on DraftKings or it's PPR. I think he's going to become a PPR monster. I think we saw it last week. We've seen it a couple times this year. They're going to really keep increasing the workload for this guy. Parker's still not 100%. Looks like he's going to play, but to be honest, I think that Waddle is talked about it on here, but I think he's the best wide receiver in this class. I think with Tua, I think all 3 of his touchdowns have come from Tua. I don't think he scored a touchdown with Jacoby Brissett. I'm sure one of you guys can fact check that. I'm not going to spend the time to look that up again, but I think with Tua, he's a much more intriguing option this week. Tua and Waddle, Gesicki. I would go. I don't know that Tua has the upside. I mean, last week was sort of an anomaly. It's 5,500 is a good price. Yeah, you could do it. I don't love it, but you could certainly do it. In that price range, I have him and Matt Ryan projected right around the same. I still like Daniel Jones as an under-the-radar quarterback this week on DraftKings because I don't believe in this Carolina defense. I think Daniel Jones is going to have to run because of the limited options that they have at the wide receiver position this week. So I like Daniel Jones's upside, but I would play Tua over him. I don't know that I would go Waddle and Gesicki. I think that's too much. Yeah, I mean, isn't that Sterling Shepard's MO? So nothing would surprise me with this Giants team, right? They seem to be them and the Browns seem to be the team that just gets the most injured. I'm sure I'm missing one of the teams that's out there, but those two teams just can't stay healthy. DeAndre Swift or Mark Andrews, non-PPR. I would go DeAndre Swift as much as I don't love him this week, but always give me like a running back who's going to get 15 to 17 touches compared to a tight end. Ridley, Hubbard, or Hardman, Kamara, FanDuel Cash. I haven't even looked at Kamara, to be honest. I would go Ridley, Hubbard. I think Hardman on FanDuel Cash is a tough one because there are real scenarios where he gets close to zero. I like Cuba Hubbard quite a bit this week going up against the Giants. Cuba, just pulling up my notes about him, 40 carries over his last 2 weeks. So, in 6 touches. So he's averaging 23 touches a game. That should be, he continues that. That's almost to the level that Kamara is at. And then I'm not saying he's as good of a player. He's certainly not. But the Giants are not a great defense. I think we all know that. Pulling up how they performed on the year. Against running backs, they've given up the 5th most points to opposing running backs. 124 yards and 0.7 touchdowns per game with 51 yards receiving. So I think Chuba's in a really good spot this week. I could see him having a big game. I could see him topping 100 yards. I could see him finding the end zone. Calvin Ridley I've talked about. I don't think his ceiling is extremely high just because I think that Kyle Pitts is going to eat into some of that. But compared to Hardman, who's probably fourth in that offense behind two monsters in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And then he's probably behind Damian Williams too. So yeah, it's a hard sell. Thoughts on Mike Davis, FanDuel Cash? I can't do it, John. I've gone down that road a couple times this year and it just hasn't gone well for me. Cordero Patterson seeing a ton of work in that offense. So it's just not, I think it's too thin. Looking in that range, I know there's not a lot sub 5,800. Davis is, he's 6,300. Yeah, there's no way. No way. Best 0.5 PPR, Lockett, Edmonds, or Dillon. So it's either Edmonds or Lockett. I would go Edmonds. I don't trust Geno Smith. That's what it comes down to. Until further notice, Edmund or Lockett and DK Metcalf are downgraded pretty significantly. So I would go Edmonds. I think that the team's going to score a lot of points there. They're projected to be one of the higher scoring teams in the week. I think they're projected 32.5, something like that. And this team's rolling. The Cardinals are looking really good. So I would go that route. Adams or Tyreek on FanDuel. I would go Adams because I'm just going to pull up the exact snap count number, but snap counts are pretty important for those of you guys that don't use them. Footballguys has a free tool. All you have to do is type in Google really any team and then snap counts, and then Footballguys will go right to the top. So even if you're not a subscriber, incredibly valuable tool. Last week, Tyreek Hill, 57% of snaps. He's dealing with the quad injury, didn't really practice this week, so he's going to play. Is he going to play the full complement of snaps? I can't guarantee that. Is he going to, with these muscle issues, could he pull something mid-game? Absolutely. So if you're going to pay up at that price for Adams, I would go with, or if you're going to pay up for Hill, I would just go to Adams. Tyreek Hill or AJ Brown? AJ Brown. Same reason. Use the savings elsewhere. Watch Tyreek. Look, Tyreek Hill has the upside to break 2 long touchdowns at any given point. But if you're paying $8,500 or whatever his price is, it's hard. AJ Brown's going to be much, much, much more popular. So if you're a guy who likes to take some contrarian plays, I'm fine with Tyreek Hill. Looking at those two in a vacuum, I would rather have AJ Brown and then utilize the savings somewhere else. AJ Brown or Calvin Ridley. Now that's close. That's close. I would go. I don't know. I have them projected within a point of each other, so you're really rolling the dice, to be honest. But when it comes down to a tiebreaker, which offense do you want to play? The team that's going to have to be throwing the entire game because presumably they're going to be losing to Kansas City. Now, anything can happen in any given week, but it's going to be a very high-scoring game. This Atlanta-Miami game, who knows? It could be 17-10 for all we know. I trust the Titans offense because of the matchup more than I do Calvin Ridley. They're going to be rostered about the same. I have Ridley at Calvin Ridley. I have some reason he's not showing up in my FanDuel rankings, but 21% is probably where he'll end up. And AJ Brown at 18. So they're the same player this week. It's just which one's going to have a better game. Appreciate you, Jason. All right, so it's 9:45. 83 people here, which is awesome. So thank you all. We're going to go for another 15 minutes. I will answer any question that gets in before 10 o'clock. So if that means we have to go over, we'll stay as long as needed, but I'll cut the questions off around 10. Okay. Also, if you guys have strategy questions, if you guys have, I've been doing this, I've been playing DFS for 11 years now. So I was playing basically when it first started back in 2010, 2011, over on a site called Draft Street that probably very few of you guys have heard of. So, I've been to a number of live finals and in the past. Don't try to qualify as much as I used to. But if you guys have any questions about really anything, I'll touch on it. So, a DK single, it's a good question. A DK single entry game is not a cash game. It's a GPP that you can only enter in once. So most GPPs you can enter in 150 times, somewhere in that neighborhood. Some of them are 20 maxes. I think there's a 10 max, 5 max, 3 max. And then single entry is basically you can enter a contest one time. There are single entry 50-50s, which essentially you can enter a very large 50-50 one time. So it can be used for both, but most of the time when people are talking about single entry lineups, they're talking about the format of it's still a GPP. There's still a very top heavy prize pool, but you can only enter it once. Lost my spot here. Is Pettis going to be a thing if Slayton and Shepard are ruled out? Probably. Who else are they going to throw to, right? I mean, if we just look at giant snap counts. It's 61% of the time of the snaps last week. And that was with no Slayton. Tony got injured. Galladay got injured. So I would say even if one of those two guys don't play, Pettis is certainly in play for value. If both of those guys don't play, he's the only guy that they got there. I mean, you have Colin Johnson. John Ross is sneaky. Incredible speed there. But, yeah, Pettis is certainly jumping up the board if one or two of those guys miss. Start two: Miles Sanders, Stevenson, Collins, Herbert, Rondale Moore, Drake. My God. Miles Sanders for sure. And Alex Collins. Although that one's tough because if we get news on Alex Collins playing, I will tell you, if we get negative news about Collins, then it gets harder. PPR rankings. Let me just pull this up really quickly. Drake, Stevenson, Herbert, Moore. Probably would go Kenyon Drake. I have Rondale Moore projected a little bit higher, so if you need upside, you might want to go Rondale Moore. But from a safety perspective, I would look at Kenyon Drake. Can we trust Hurts and Cash? Depends on the site. Really depends on the site. On DraftKings, he's cheap enough. But if you're concerned about it, I would look at Matthew Stafford pretty hard. 7,100 on DraftKings, 200 more than Hurts, and he's actually cheaper than Hurts on FanDuel. So I think Stafford is completely fine this week if you're worried about Hurts. I think Stafford has as much upside as Mahomes, particularly if Jared Goff can keep this game close. I mean, that's the biggest concern, is that the Lions just sort of roll over and play dead. But if they do that, it's incredibly likely that Stafford throws for at least 2, probably 3 touchdowns in that game. So Hurts is more of a risk. If he doesn't score a rushing touchdown, you're kind of in a bad spot. So on FanDuel for sure, I would look at Stafford. I would look really hard at him on DraftKings as well. Yeah, I can talk about Daniel Jones a little bit. So the theory here, and it's more of a GPP play than it is a cash game play. The theory here is that Carolina's defense, really good, started off really good. But if you look at their defense in the stats of the teams that they faced the Jets week 1 in Zach Wilson's first start. They faced New Orleans, and that was the game that New Orleans had like 3 total coaches. They were dealing with the Hurricanes in their system and coming off a big win against Green Bay. So they just didn't show up. And then they faced Houston, which we all know. All know about Houston, and that was Davis Mills' first start. So from a statistical standpoint, Carolina's defense looked amazing the first 3 weeks of the year. Since then, they've allowed 4 passing touchdowns to Dak Prescott. They allowed Jalen Hurts to run for 2 touchdowns. And they allowed Kirk Cousins to throw for 373 yards and 3 touchdowns. Daniel Jones hasn't looked great. I'll be the first to admit that. He had a tough matchup last week against the Rams. Not going to fault him for that. The Cowboys game was a little concerning, if I'm being honest. Only 98 yards passing is sort of a joke, if I'm being honest, against the Cowboys. But they were never in that game. And did he get hurt in that game? Yeah, Mike Glennon came in and had a really good game. The team actually threw for 300 yards in that game against Dallas. So, but if you look at his entire season, 267 yards against a good Denver defense, not a great one, but a good one, with a touchdown, and he ran for a touchdown. Against Washington, which we all know their defense is horrendous, 250, passed for a touchdown, ran for 95 yards, ran for a touchdown. 266 for Atlanta, and then 400 against New Orleans. So he's in those games where they're not getting completely blown out. He's running for 27, 95, 39, and 27, and has 2 rushing touchdowns. I think he's going to have to run in this game. I think that 40 rushing yards is not out of the realm of possibility. I think he's going to throw for 250, somewhere in that neighborhood. Devontae Booker sucks. Not a good running back. He's averaging 3 yards a carry, which is the worst in the NFL for someone who has started this year. And if Slayton and Shepard play, the wide receiver options that he has are not that bad. So it's a matter of, I think the Carolina's defense is bad. I think that Daniel Jones is a decent quarterback, not great. And Justin Fields is the problem is Tampa Bay is going to dominate that line of scrimmage, which I don't like. If you have to go lower than RSJ and Cash, who would I trust the most? Oh, God, you guys are killing me today. I don't know that I would go any lower. But to answer your question and to entertain you, Seal Jones is 3,700. Am I cheating if I say Evan Ingram? If Slayton and Shepard miss? Let's see. Maybe Cole Kmet, 4 for 49 last week against Green Bay. If the game goes as I expect, which is the line of scrimmage is dominated by Tampa Bay, then Cole Kmet could be like a dump-off type guy, maybe. It's thin, but, that's where we're at 56 minutes into the show. Okay, so 4 minutes. Like I said, I'll get to every single question. I know I'm like 20 minutes behind, so I'm probably going to go another 20 minutes at least. I'll power through some of these to catch up, but I would get your questions in now if you haven't already. Which 2 backs do I like the best? So Edmonds, yes. Edmonds and Gibson. Yeah, you can drop Gainwell. Maybe drop Latavius Murray, but I would drop Gainwell. And Latavius Murray's out. McKissick is a gadget back. So I would go with the first 2. Hey, Darren, thanks for showing up tonight. Appreciate you. Debo or Fournette in PPR. Ooh, That's interesting. That is interesting. Give me. I just lose you guys. I accidentally hit the wrong button. I'd go Debo. I have been projected 2 points higher than Fournette. I think that Debo is emerging as a top wide receiver in the league. If you need safety, like, hey, you're projected to beat your opponent pretty easily, you just want to avoid a zero, go with Leonard Fournette. But Debo is the guy for me. Burrow or Ryan, FanDuel, give me Joey B. Pettis or Amendola, it's too early to know. Not much I love about Amendola, to be honest. I think if you're looking at 3K, you should look at Tyler Johnson as the minimum price guy there instead of Amendola with Antonio Brown being out. The only way I would play Pettis is if one of Slayton or Shepard are out, and I think that they're both going to play. Yeah, this is a tough week. There's a lot of bye weeks this week. There's a lot of just uncertainty. You're dealing with guys that are, if you told me in week 7 or back in week 1 that I was playing an $8,000 Darrell Henderson on FanDuel, I'd tell you you're insane. But that's sort of where we're at. It's like there's Derrick Henry all the way at the top, and I'm surprised I haven't gotten a single Derrick Henry question this week. I don't know if that tells me that you guys are playing him or not playing him. I don't know. So post in the comments, are you playing Derrick Henry? Maybe. I don't know. But if you are, it makes it tough because you have to go super low end. But, man, I mean, there's 3 guys in Adams, Cup, and Henry that you're going to want to try and fit in. If you're in a GPP, I talked about it on the Power Grid, but you can look at just a completely balanced lineup. Avoid the Tyler Johnsons, avoid the Rashad Batemans, avoid the Ricky Seals-Jones. Or you could go 2 tight ends to differentiate yourself. You could go Travis Kelce and Ricky Seals-Jones in a GPP. I would prefer to do that on DraftKings just because of the full PPR. But it's a nice cost-saving measure too. Ridley or Mike Evans? Depends on the contest, but I probably prefer Calvin Ridley. Evans always has that ceiling of multiple touchdowns, but Ridley I think is safer this week. A lot of Ridley questions, which is interesting. Thoughts on Aaron Jones? It's a name I really haven't even considered. Maybe it's because I'm trying to play Devontae Adams. On DraftKings at 7,500, looking at players that are in that range, I prefer Darrell Henderson at 66 a lot. I mean, over Jones. I probably prefer Leonard Fournette, and I certainly prefer Cuba Hubbard. Jones is just tricky because he'll have these 1 or 2 games a year where he just goes completely off. But the challenge with Aaron Jones is he doesn't have the volume that he needs to consistently contribute at that top end level. Over his last 3 weeks, he has 15 carries, 14 carries, and 13 carries. He's doing okay with them, 76 yards, 103 yards, and 48 yards. But what that does is it limits his top end of a guy like Chuba who's going to touch the ball 24, 25 times. Certainly Derrick Henry, Darrell Henderson is probably sort of in that range, but he's going to touch it a little bit more than he did 21 carries last week, for example. So only 2 touchdowns for Aaron Jones. He's not necessarily the top target in the red zone. That often goes to Devontae Adams on those, either a fade or a quick slant. And A.J. Dillon is still there. So Long story short, I think he's a little overpriced. Thoughts on Sanders and Jacobs in the same lineup? I'm fine with it. Fine with it. It adds a little risk for sure, but I'm fine with it. Darnold or Tua. Darnold just scares me. He doesn't look like the same quarterback that we saw in the first 3 weeks. And I just talked about it, but the first 3 weeks for the Panthers were really easy. Facing the Jets, facing a Saints team that had no coaching staff and coming off of the hurricane and coming off of a letdown performance after their week 1 against Green Bay. Darnold scored 7 interceptions in the last 3 games, something like that. So give me Tua. Pump play at tight end, Ricky Seals-Jones. Goddard or Ricky Seals-Jones. If you can afford Goddard, I prefer him. But if you can't, Ricky Seals-Jones is fine. Do I like Waller if he plays? No. He's sort of in the Aaron Jones category for me, where production just hasn't been there. We saw the 19 targets week 1. It sort of drove his price up, and everyone went crazy. And since then, what has he done? 65 yards, 54 yards, 50 yards, 45 yards, 59 yards. It's not good enough. 1 touchdown in that span. So 6,700 on DraftKings certainly has the upside, certainly can figure it out. But who do you trust more, him or Mark Andrews? At the moment, it's Mark Andrews. Who do I trust more, him or TJ Hawkinson? It's probably pretty close. And Hawkinson's 1,600 cheaper. So his price needs to come down a little bit before I can start considering Darren Waller. What that means is he's probably going to have a huge game here, and it's going to all be justified, and I'll probably kick myself. But they have a lot more options this year too. Hunter Renfrow is performing somewhat infrequently, but he's doing all right. Bryan Edwards and Henry Ruggs are deep threats, and then Josh Jacobs, mixing in the running game there too. So it's not like last year where I think Darren Waller was the only option. They may have had one other guy there, but they were really banged up last year. How do I view a local 10-man contest? Good question. He adds on that it only pays first place. I get a lot of these. I treat them as like a cash game, what David Dodds of Footballguys used to call a cash game plus. And what that essentially means is you want to have some level of correlation, but you don't need to go completely off the wall like you do on some GPPs. So I would stack a quarterback. I would stack a wide receiver. If you want to run it back with a wide receiver on the other side, fine. But pick a game, pick a game that you think is going to be high scoring. It also sort of depends on your local 10-man contests. There are some 10-man contests that are just wacky. Like people just play crazy things. There are other 10-man contests that are incredibly sharp. So sort of understanding your opponents is pretty critical there. So look at what they play. If they're guys that always spend up at the top end of the running back and Derrick Henry is always going to be 70% no matter what his price is, don't play Derrick Henry. I mean, it's that simple. Because on those weeks there, Derrick Henry doesn't hit value, you're basically going to be going against like 3 guys in that tournament. So understanding local leagues are very important to understand how other teams construct their lineups. It takes 10, 15 minutes a week, and the returns that you can have, especially if it's a winner take all, are massive. Hopefully that helps. Pats D or Panthers D? Pats D. Cordero Patterson, running back this week versus Miami. On DraftKings, I love him. I think he's a great GPP play. He's going to go under the radar, completely under the radar. But you look at what he's doing, he's their offense right now. It's basically him, Pitts, and Ridley, but catching the ball, running the ball, sort of doing everything, almost like an Alvin Kamara light type role. I like Patterson a lot as a GPP play. The challenge is as a cash game play, that could all go away like that. It's Cordero Patterson. How many years has he been in the league? How many years has he struggled? Maybe it's the name, and maybe I shouldn't do that, but I can't get past that. Yeah, I don't really want to talk about how much I have in a given week. I don't go bigger or smaller. There are certain weeks that I'll go smaller if I just don't feel good about my lineup, but I try to stay consistent each and every week because there are weeks that, trust me, if you don't feel confident, then your opponents aren't going to feel confident. So I try to stay consistent. Human nature tells me that I put in about the same every single week, and some weeks I play a little bit more than others, but I don't deviate too much. Two favorite GPP running backs on DraftKings. So two favorite GPP running backs on DraftKings. Darrell Henderson's going to – the two obvious ones are Darrell Henderson and Damian Williams. I think that those are going to be incredibly popular. So I will give you two names that are not those two. Cuba Hubbard is probably my favorite outside of that group. He will be popular, but not nearly as popular as those two. And then I'm sort of liking Miles Sanders more and more as like a low-end option. Yeah, I think that sums that up. If you want to go really crazy, you could go James Conner, and he could be in a position where he scores 2 touchdowns this week pretty easily. Can you go Henderson and Stafford? Sure. We've talked about that a couple times this week. You could definitely do that. Thoughts on your new Cleveland running back? He looked great. Too bad he's not locked up longer term than this year. So that sucks. Nick Chubb's going to take over, and Kareem Hunt will be back at some point. So I'm glad the Browns won. I hope they continue winning. It scares me that they're going to try and pay Baker Mayfield this offseason, but I've expressed those opinions before. Is it okay to go Mahomes, Damian Williams, and Kelsey in the same lineup? Sure. They obviously, you know what they're going to need by doing that. So I don't need to tell you that. But look, the Chiefs could score 5 touchdowns, right? And if Damian Williams I keep saying Damian Williams, Darrell Williams. It's an hour and 10 into the show, so hopefully you guys forgive me there. Darrell Williams and Travis Kelce. If they get 4 of those 5, you are absolutely golden. If they get 1 of those 5, you're in trouble. But you know that going in, so I think that you're fine. Yeah, Tyler Johnson's definitely in play this week as a cash game play or a GPP. I think he's fine in both. Who will earn more points? We're almost done here, guys. Thank you all for staying with me. There's still 80 of us here, so that's awesome. Who will earn? If you haven't given the thumbs up, please do. It takes 2 seconds, and it really helps the show. Who will earn more points? Stevenson from New England, Russell Gage, or J.D. McKissick? Probably McKissick. Yeah, McKissick. I think that Antonio Gibson's less than 100%. The Packers should be winning, which means that McKissick's going to be behind. Terry McLaurin's less than 100%. So I think that McKissick should get his number of catches this week, particularly if it's PPR. I don't know your question, Derek. I don't know that. I don't understand. Julio Jones, Kenyon Drake, Naheem Hines, Christian Kirk. Do we know the status of Julio? If he's in, I'm probably playing him. But let's pretend he's playing. So Julio, and then it gets dicey. Kirk, Drake, Hines. So I'm going to eliminate Naheem Hines. So it comes down to Christian Kirk or Kenyon Drake. Goes back to like, do you need upside or do you need? Are they both 4:00 games? Because that would be awesome. Yeah, they're both 4:00 games. So that makes it easy. So hopefully you have a flex spot. It sounds like you do, considering I can pick 2 of any of this group. So wait until 2, depending on your time zone, 3:50 Eastern, and determine if you need upside, go Christian Kirk. If you just need like, hey, I need 8 points, anything more than that's great, but I need 8 to 12, somewhere in that range, go Kenyon Drake. 7. I don't know. It depends on your site. So FanDuel is insane. He's $11,000 on FanDuel. So at $11,000 on FanDuel, that means he's going to need at least 28 points to pay off his salary, which is 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Can he do it? Yes. But even then, it's still just getting there. To actually exceed it, he needs more than that. It's just crazy. It's a crazy world. I never thought we'd be in a position where a non-McCaffrey player, would be $11,000. A lot of you guys are not playing Derrick Henry. I don't blame you. Okay, I think you have Hurts, Murray, and Mayfield. Yeah, cut Baker. Get him out of there. He's a bum. Okay. One more. Why not? Who do I put in your lineup? Sanders, Dillon, Pitts, Gesicki, Higgins. Pick 3, at least one tight end. So tight end Pitts. Sanders for sure. And then it comes down to Dillon versus Higgins. I don't love taking backup running. I guess we could take Gesicki too. Gesicki, Dillon. Probably not taking Dillon or Higgins. Yeah, give me Higgins. So Sanders, Pitts, Higgins. If you want safety, Gesicki's fine over Higgins. Okay. I am not a fake Browns fan. There are times I wish I was not a Browns fan, but I'm too much of a Browns fan at times. Okay. All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. We're an hour 14 into the show. We went a little long today. I hope no one minds. But you guys all stuck with me, so that's cool. Good luck tomorrow. Hope everyone does well. Hope everyone wins. I know it's a big season-long week. I know it's a big DFS week from sort of getting, if you're 3-3 on the year, so it feels a lot better to be 4-3. So good luck, everyone. We will talk to you later.